You've probably seen that viral video, a pregnant woman in a yellow dress tumbling down the courthouse stairs while the crowd screams. Everyone thought it was just another tragic accident. But what if I told you it wasn't? What if the woman's own husband planned every second of it and used his mistress to make it happen? My name is Tyler Winters. The woman bleeding on those marble steps was my sister. And what the world didn't see on that video was the text message that proved he orchestrated everything. Over the next few minutes, you'll hear how one man's obsession for control turned into the most shocking case of betrayal, manipulation, and revenge you've ever heard, and how a broken woman rose from those courthouse stairs to destroy him in front of the world. So don't scroll, don't blink, because once you know the truth, you'll never look at love or justice the same way again. And if you believe every woman deserves to be heard, hit like, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe for more real stories that reveal what really happens behind closed doors. My name is Tyler Winters, and the woman bleeding on those courthouse steps was my sister Rachel. Before I tell you how we destroyed the man who orchestrated her attack, you need to understand something. What went viral wasn't the whole story. 67 million people watched a pregnant woman get kicked down marble stairs. They saw Vanessa Drake's boot connect with my sister's stomach. They saw Rachel tumble 12 steps, her yellow dress blooming red with blood. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't see Derek Winters, Rachel's husband, the father of her unborn child, standing in the courthouse doorway, watching, not moving, not calling out, just watching. And then, for exactly 1 second, he smiled. That smile told me everything. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a plan. Let me take you back to where it really started. Not on those stairs, but 6 months earlier, in the marriage that was designed to destroy her. Rachel wasn't always broken. She used to be the kind of person who saw the best in everyone. High school art teacher, painted watercolors on weekends. Married Derek when she was 27, right after he got promoted to CFO at Drake Industries. Yeah, same last name as the woman who kicked her. Hold that thought. I remember the first time I met Derek, Thanksgiving, 4 years ago. He showed up late to Mom's house, checked his phone through dinner, and interrupted Rachel every time she spoke. When I pulled her aside in the kitchen, she made excuses. He's under a lot of stress at work, she said. His boss is really demanding. That was Rachel's fatal flaw. She always believed him. 3 months before the courthouse attack, Rachel called me at 2 in the morning. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. I'm pregnant, she said. That's amazing, Rach. I told Derek tonight. Tyler, his face. Her voice broke. He looked at me like I'd just told him he had cancer. I drove to their house, found her sitting on the bathroom floor, pregnancy test in her hand. Derek had left, just walked out without saying where he was going. He'll come around, she said, more to herself than to me. He's just scared. First-time dad nerves. But Derek didn't come around. He came home at 4 in the morning, reeking of perfume that wasn't Rachel's. 2 months before the stairs, Rachel found a hotel receipt in Derek's jacket. When she confronted him, he turned it around on her. You're smothering me, he said, voice cold as ice. Maybe that's why I needed space. Did you ever think you're the problem? I'm pregnant with your baby. I never asked you to keep it. Rachel moved in with me the next day. That's when I started digging into Derek's life. What I found made my blood run cold. He wasn't just having an affair. He was having an affair with Vanessa Drake, daughter of his boss, Richard Drake, the same Richard Drake who owned Drake Industries, where Derek worked, the same company that held Rachel's family trust. $12 million that would go to their child if anything happened to Rachel. 1 month before the courthouse, Derek filed for divorce. Rachel never saw it coming. The court papers claimed she had erratic behavior and emotional instability. I knew then that Derek was building a case. I just didn't know how far he'd go. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The cruelest irony. The divorce hearing was supposed to be routine. Sign papers, split assets, done. But when we pulled up to the Los Angeles federal courthouse that morning, there were reporters everywhere. Why are there cameras? Rachel asked, her hand on her pregnant belly. She was 7 months along, wearing a yellow dress, our mom's favorite color. Mom had died of cancer 2 years earlier, and Rachel wore yellow whenever she needed to feel brave. I don't know, I said, but alarm bells were already ringing in my head. We started up the courthouse steps. Rachel moved slowly, carefully. Then Vanessa Drake appeared out of nowhere, dressed in a red designer suit that probably cost more than my car. There she is, Vanessa shouted, loud enough for every camera to hear. The woman trying to trap my fiancé. Rachel stopped, confused. Fiancé? You were sleeping with him while we were married. He told me you lied about birth control. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice rising. You got pregnant on purpose to ruin his life. Rachel's hand went protectively to her belly. I saw Vanessa's eyes follow the movement, saw something ugly twist across her face. That's when I looked up at the courthouse entrance. Derek stood there in his tailored suit, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Not moving, not intervening, just watching his pregnant wife get confronted by his mistress in front of dozens of cameras. And then I saw it. The corner of his mouth twitched upward, a small smile there and gone in a heartbeat before he composed his face into a mask of concern. He wanted this to happen. Everything that came next happened in slow motion. Vanessa's boot connected with Rachel's pregnant stomach. The sound, that wet, heavy thud, will haunt me until I die. Rachel's eyes went wide with shock, pain, betrayal. She reached for the railing, fingers grasping at empty air. Then she was falling. Her head hit step 4 with a sickening crack. Her body rolled, arm bending at an impossible angle. Step 8, step 9, blood on white marble. Her yellow dress twisting around her legs. Step 12. She stopped moving. Someone screamed, "Oh my God, she's pregnant!" I vaulted over the barrier, shoving through the crowd. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. I dropped to my knees beside Rachel, my hands shaking. Rachel, stay with me. Blood everywhere, so much blood. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second. Tyler? Her voice was barely a whisper. The baby. Then nothing. Her eyes rolled back, her head lolled to the side. Call 911. I screamed. Somebody call 911. The paramedics seemed to take forever. I held Rachel's hand, pressing my jacket against the worst of the bleeding. Around us, the world had erupted into chaos. Reporters shouting questions. Police trying to control the crowd. Camera flashes turning the morning into a strobe light nightmare. I looked back toward the courthouse entrance. Derek was walking down the steps, slowly, calmly. He checked his watch. Then he put his hand on Vanessa's shoulder, leaning in to whisper something in her ear. That's when I knew for certain. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. This was orchestrated. Every camera angle, every reporter, every second of that accident was planned. The ambulance arrived. They loaded Rachel onto a stretcher, her body limp and unresponsive. I climbed in beside her, holding her cold hand. As we pulled away, I looked back one more time. Derek stood on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters. He was making a statement, his face the picture of concern. But I had seen his smile. I knew the truth. And I made myself a promise right then, as the ambulance screamed through Los Angeles traffic, I would destroy him. Whatever it took, however long it took. Derek Winters had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had hurt my sister in front of the entire world. Now the entire world was going to watch him fall. 21 days. That's how long Rachel was in a coma. 21 days of sitting beside her hospital bed, watching machines breathe for her, watching her belly grow as the baby inside her fought to stay alive. The doctor said we were lucky. Lucky. As if there was anything lucky about watching your sister lie unconscious while her husband sued for custody of the baby she hadn't even met yet. On day 21, her eyes opened. I was reading case files, digging into Derek's finances, his connections, anything I could use against him, when I heard her gasp. Her hand shot to her stomach, finding it flat. Where's my baby? Her voice was raw, panicked. Tyler, where is my baby? I hit the call button. Rachel, you need to stay calm. Where is my baby? She tried to sit up, couldn't. Her legs wouldn't move right. Emily Carter rushed in with 2 nurses. Ms. Winters, please, you need to lie back down. My baby, someone tell me about my baby. Your daughter is alive, Dr. Emily Carter said firmly. She's in the NICU. We had to perform an emergency C-section to save you both. She was born at 29 weeks, 2 pounds, 4 ounces. She's stable, but she's critical. Rachel's face crumpled. I have a daughter? Yes, she's a fighter, just like her mother. Rachel tried to stand again. Her legs buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. What's wrong with my legs? Dr. Emily Carter's expression was grave. You have a spinal contusion from the fall. With physical therapy, you should regain most function, but it will take months. For now, you'll need a wheelchair. The sound Rachel made wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob. It was the sound of someone's world shattering into pieces so small they might never fit back together. 2 hours later, I wheeled Rachel down to the NICU. She barely fit in the chair, still swollen from pregnancy, stitches pulling, pain medication making her dizzy. But she refused to wait another minute. The NICU was a quiet space, all beeping machines and hushed voices. A nurse led us to an incubator in the corner. Inside was the tiniest human being I'd ever seen. Tubes everywhere, wires monitoring every heartbeat, every breath. Her skin was translucent, her fingers the size of matchsticks. But her chest rose and fell, steady and determined. She's beautiful, Rachel whispered. She pressed her hand against the incubator glass. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you. This isn't your fault, I said. I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there. I was just too stupid to. Rachel, stop. I knelt beside her wheelchair. Derek did this, not you. Derek and Vanessa. And I swear to you, they're going to pay. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. How? Derek has money, lawyers, connections. What do we have? We have the truth, and we have 67 million people who saw that video. Rachel turned back to the incubator. Our niece, my niece, yawned, a movement so small and perfect it made my chest ache. Has Derek been here? Rachel asked quietly. Once. He stayed for 5 minutes, took a photo for social media, and left. Her jaw tightened. Of course he did. The next bomb dropped 1 week later. I was at the hospital when a process server walked into Rachel's room. He handed her a thick manila envelope and left without a word. Rachel's hands shook as she opened it. I watched the color drain from her face. He's filing for emergency custody, she said, her voice hollow. He says I'm physically incapable of caring for an infant, that I have a history of emotional instability. She threw the papers at me. I caught them, started reading, and felt rage building in my chest. Derek's lawyer, Marcus Vaughn, a man with a reputation for destroying mothers in family court, had attached Rachel's therapy records from after our mom died. Records that were supposed to be confidential. Records that showed Rachel had briefly been on antidepressants. How did he get these? Rachel demanded. Illegally, I said. But that won't matter if the judge doesn't know they were obtained illegally. Tyler, I can't fight this. I can't even walk. How am I supposed to convince a judge I can take care of a baby? We'll figure it out. I'll hire the best lawyer. With what money? Derek froze our joint accounts. The GoFundMe barely covers my medical bills. She was right. We were outgunned, outspent, and out of time. The custody hearing was scheduled for 48 hours later. We barely had time to prepare. The family courthouse was smaller than the federal building where Rachel had been attacked, but it felt just as hostile. We arrived early. Rachel insisted on wearing a professional dress despite the pain it caused to get dressed. She sat in her wheelchair, hands clasped in her lap, trying to look stable and competent. Derek arrived with Marcus Vaughn, who looked exactly like what he was, expensive. Silver hair, $5,000 suit, practiced sympathetic expression. When the judge entered, an older white man named Henderson who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, Marcus immediately went on the offensive. Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned about his daughter's welfare. Ms. Winters is currently wheelchair-bound, unemployed, and living in her brother's one-bedroom apartment. The infant in question weighs barely 2 pounds and requires round-the-clock medical care. Mr. Winters has a home, resources, and the ability to provide. She was assaulted. Our lawyer, an overworked public defender named Janet Morris, jumped in. By his mistress, while pregnant. Marcus didn't miss a beat. Alleged assault. Ms. Drake maintains it was self-defense during a verbal altercation that Ms. Winters initiated. Regardless, the question before this court isn't who's at fault for the premature birth. It's who's better equipped to care for a medically fragile infant. And clearly, "That's a lie," Rachel shouted, half rising from her wheelchair. "She kicked me. Everyone saw." "Ms. Winters," Judge Henderson banged his gavel, "control yourself or I'll have you removed." Rachel sank back down, tears streaming. I watched Marcus Vaughn's slight smile. He'd just proven his point. Rachel looks unstable. The judge took less than 10 minutes to decide. Given Miss Winters' current physical limitations and emotional state, temporary custody is granted to Mr. Winters. Ms. Winters will have supervised visitation twice per week, 2 hours per session, until such time as her condition improves. Rachel's scream echoed through the courtroom. Bailiffs moved toward us. I grabbed her wheelchair, got her out of there before they could make things worse. Outside, she collapsed into sobs. "He took my baby. Tyler, he took my baby." I knelt in front of her wheelchair. "We're going to get her back. I promise you, we're going to get her back." But even as I said it, I wondered if I was lying. Derek had money, power, and the law on his side. What did we have? Then my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You want to know what really happened on those courthouse steps? Meet me. Come alone." It was from Vanessa Drake. The Los Angeles County Jail smelled like disinfectant and desperation. I sat in a plastic chair in the visitation room, waiting for them to bring out Vanessa Drake. I hadn't told Rachel about this meeting. She would have tried to stop me, and I needed answers more than I needed her permission. The door buzzed. Vanessa walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Without makeup, she looked younger, smaller. Nothing like the woman in the red suit who had kicked my sister down courthouse stairs. She sat down across from me, picking at her cuticles. "I wasn't sure you'd come. You attacked my pregnant sister. Why would you want me here?" "Because Derek lied to both of us." Her voice cracked. "And I'm done protecting him." I leaned back, studying her. "Talk." He showed me medical records, text messages. He said Rachel was abusive, that she got pregnant on purpose to trap him. He made her sound like a monster. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was helping him escape. I thought, God, I'm such an idiot." "You kicked a pregnant woman in the stomach. On camera, what did you think would happen?" "I didn't think. That's the problem. I was angry and scared, and Derek kept telling me Rachel was dangerous, and when I saw her on those stairs, something just..." She covered her face with her hands. "I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to make her feel as small as Derek made me feel every time he talked about her." "Derek made you feel small?" Vanessa looked up. "You don't know what he's like. In private, he's not the charming CFO everyone thinks he is. He's cruel, controlling. He has this way of making you feel like you're nothing without him." I thought about Rachel's hollow eyes when she moved in with me, the way she flinched when I raised my voice. Derek had been breaking her long before Vanessa's boot made contact. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because he promised he'd protect me. He said his lawyers would make this go away, that it was an accident, no jury would convict me." She laughed bitterly. "But now? His lawyers won't return my calls. My dad fired me to protect the company brand. I'm looking at 8 to 15 years while Derek walks free. Does that seem fair to you?" "No, but life isn't fair. I can help you destroy him." Vanessa leaned forward. "Derek sent me texts before the courthouse, planning the whole thing. I deleted them, but my lawyer thinks she can recover them." My pulse quickened. "What kind of texts?" "Instructions. Where to be, what to say, how to make Rachel look crazy on camera. He said if she got physical, I had every right to defend myself, that he'd back me up." "He set you up to attack her?" "Yes." Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "And I fell for it, because I was in love with him and I believed him when he said Rachel was the villain." I studied her face, looking for the lie. All I saw was regret and fear. "If you help us, what do you want in return?" "A plea deal. My lawyer says if I testify against Derek, the DA might reduce my sentence to 4 years. 4 years. For kicking a pregnant woman down courthouse stairs. For nearly killing my niece. My hands clenched into fists under the table. Vanessa saw it. I know it's not enough. I know I don't deserve mercy. But Derek deserves to go to prison more than I do. He planned this. He weaponized me. And he's going to keep destroying people until someone stops him. She wasn't wrong. I need to talk to Rachel first, I said. She'll say no. She hates me. I don't blame her. Probably, but this is her decision, not mine. Vanessa nodded slowly. Tell her I'm sorry. It doesn't fix anything, but it's true. Rachel said no. Absolutely not, she said when I told her about Vanessa's offer. We were in her hospital room. She'd been readmitted after collapsing during physical therapy. That woman almost killed my baby. And you want me to help her get a lighter sentence? I want you to help us destroy Derek. I don't care about Derek. I care about getting my daughter back. This is how we get her back, Rach. Vanessa's testimony proves Derek orchestrated the attack, proves his custody filing was fraud. Rachel's hands shook with rage. So I help her. She gets 4 years in minimum security, and I'm supposed to feel good about that? I've lost everything. My job, my home, my ability to walk without pain, my baby. Her voice broke. She gets 4 years while I get a lifetime of nightmares. I know, it's not fair, but Derek will walk away from this completely if we don't use what Vanessa can give us. Rachel turned to look out the window. Outside, Los Angeles sprawled in the afternoon haze. Somewhere out there, Derek was holding our niece, feeding her, deciding her future, building a case to make sure Rachel never got custody back. What kind of testimony? She asked finally. I pulled out my laptop, opened the recovered text messages Vanessa's lawyer had sent me. Rachel read them in silence. I watched her face go from fury to something colder, harder. He told her to wear red, she said quietly, so the cameras would see her. He planned every second. Yes. And this recording? She clicked on the audio file. What is this? Listen. I hit play. Derek's voice filled the hospital room. If Vanessa had caused a miscarriage, you wouldn't have any custody issues at all. Rachel's face went white. She listened to the entire conversation. Derek and Marcus Vaughn discussing strategy, laughing about how Rachel would probably kill herself within a year. When it ended, she closed the laptop with shaking hands. How did you get this? I can't tell you yet, but it's admissible in court. It was recorded on Derek's own security system. Rachel was quiet for a long time. Then she said, tell the DA I'll accept Vanessa's plea deal, but I want to be there when she testifies. I want to look her in the eye when she admits what Derek made her do. You sure? No, but I'm sure I want Derek in prison more than I want revenge on Vanessa. She looked at me, and I barely recognized her. The woman who saw good in everyone was gone. In her place was someone who understood that sometimes, to get justice, you have to make deals with the people who hurt you. Derek had wanted to break her. Instead, he'd made her dangerous. 3 months after the courthouse attack, Rachel moved from Tyler's apartment into a small studio near the hospital. She could walk now with a cane, slowly, painfully, but she could walk. Every morning at 5 a.m., she woke up and practiced. Walking across the room without the cane. Walking without limping. Walking like someone who could take care of a baby. She recorded herself during these sessions. Fell dozens of times. Got back up. Fell again. Never stopped. Tyler didn't know about these recordings. Nobody did, because Rachel was building something Derek wouldn't see coming. Evidence that she was recovering faster than anyone thought possible. At 7 a.m., she'd attend physical therapy at the hospital. She'd limp, use the cane, let the therapist document her slow progress. She'd wince dramatically when they tested her mobility. She'd talk about how hard everything was. At 8 a.m., she'd go to supervised visitation with her daughter. Still unnamed because Derek refused to fill out the birth certificate. 2 hours twice a week with a social worker watching every move. Rachel never cried during these visits. She fed her daughter, changed her, sang softly. She pretended everything was fine, that losing custody hadn't destroyed her. The social worker wrote in her reports, "Mother appears detached. Minimal emotional engagement with infant." Perfect. Derek's lawyers used those reports to file for permanent custody termination. They wanted Rachel to have visitation twice a month until the baby turned 18, if they were feeling generous. Tyler confronted her. Rach, what are you doing? The social worker thinks you don't care about the baby. They're going to use this against you. That's the plan. What? Rachel looked up from the custody law textbook she'd been studying. Let them think I'm broken. Let them think I've given up. Derek needs to believe he won. Why? Because when he thinks he's won, he gets careless. And when he gets careless, he talks. That's when she told Tyler about Maria. Maria Gonzalez had worked as Derek's housekeeper for 10 years. She cleaned his office, did his laundry, cooked his meals. She was invisible to him, just part of the help. Rachel had met Maria once at a company party 3 years ago. Maria had been serving drinks. Derek had snapped his fingers at her, demanded she clean up a spill immediately, hadn't said thank you. Later, Rachel had found Maria in the kitchen and apologized. They talked for 20 minutes. Maria had shown her pictures of her grandson in Mexico. Rachel had asked about her watercolor paintings. Maria was an artist too, back before she'd immigrated. Rachel still had Maria's phone number. She called from a burner phone Tyler didn't know she'd bought. Maria, this is Rachel Winters, Derek's ex-wife. I need your help. They met at a coffee shop in East LA. Maria was hesitant at first. Derek had threatened to call ICE if she ever quit, and she was undocumented. What if I could help you get your green card? Rachel asked. Legally, I know an immigration lawyer. The GoFundMe has enough money to cover it. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Why would you help me? Because Derek's been threatening you for years, just like he threatened me. And I think we can help each other. Rachel explained the plan. Maria would stay in Derek's house, keep working, keep cleaning. But she'd also keep her eyes and ears open. She'd take photos of documents. She'd record conversations using Derek's own security system. He has cameras in his office, Maria said. For security, the recordings go to a cloud server. Can you get me access? He gave me the password years ago. In case something happened to him, I was supposed to send the recordings to his lawyer. Rachel smiled. Maria, you just became the most important person in this entire case. Over the next month, Maria did exactly what Rachel asked. She photographed Derek's financial records, evidence of the $50,000 he'd paid to delete courthouse security footage. She documented the $2 million spent on the smear campaign against Rachel. She recorded conversations between Derek and Marcus Vaughn, and then she hit the jackpot. One night, Derek and Marcus were drinking in his office. Maria was cleaning the upstairs bathroom, listening through Derek's own security system. So the judge bought it, Derek said. She thinks Rachel's unstable? Hook, line, and sinker, Marcus replied. I've filed for permanent custody termination. She gets supervised visits twice a month until the baby turns 18, if we're feeling generous. Derek laughed. Jesus, Marcus, you're worth every penny. Just doing my job. Although I still think we should have gone further at the courthouse. If Vanessa had caused a miscarriage, you wouldn't have any custody issues at all. Silence. Then Derek, I thought about it, but this way I get the kid and Rachel looks like the villain. She'll probably kill herself within a year. Problem solved. And if she doesn't, then we make her disappear. Plenty of ways to discredit a crazy ex-wife. One more incident and she's committed. Game over. Maria had stopped cleaning. Her hands had started shaking because she understood, finally, what kind of man she'd been working for. She made a copy of the recording and gave it to Rachel the next day. When Tyler heard it, he said, "Holy shit, he's planning to have you institutionalized." Rachel's expression was calm, terrifying. Good, let him try. The crisis came at 2:47 in the morning. Tyler's phone rang, the hospital. The baby had respiratory distress. They needed parental consent for treatment. They tried calling Derek, but he wasn't answering. They arrived at the ER to find their niece in an oxygen tent, struggling to breathe. The doctor explained, RSV, common in preemies, serious but treatable if they could get consent. I'm her mother, Rachel said. The security guard stepped forward. Ma'am, according to our records, you only have supervised visitation rights. We can't allow. My baby is dying, and you're talking about paperwork? The guard was unmoved. Hospital policy. They needed custodial parent consent. They waited 45 minutes. Rachel paced, cane forgotten, tears streaming down her face. Tyler called Derek's cell over and over. No answer. Finally, Derek strolled in with a coffee, checking his phone. "What's the situation?" he asked casually. "Your daughter needs immediate respiratory support," the doctor said urgently. "We need your consent." "Fine, whatever. Where do I sign?" He signed the forms without even looking at the baby. Then he turned to Rachel. "You shouldn't be here. Our daughter almost died and you took 45 minutes to show up." Derek smiled. That same cold smile from the courthouse steps. "Unlike you, I don't make everything a drama, Rachel." Something inside Rachel snapped. She lunged at him. Tyler caught her, held her back, but the damage was done. Derek's smile widened. "See? Unstable. Someone call security. I want a restraining order filed by morning." As they escorted Rachel out, she screamed, "You tried to kill us both, and you're going to pay." Outside the hospital, she collapsed in Tyler's arms. "We have the recording," Tyler reminded her. "We can destroy him now." Rachel looked up, tears streaming, but her eyes were hard as diamonds. "Then let's destroy him." 6 weeks later, the Los Angeles Superior Court was surrounded by protesters. Some held signs reading "Justice for Rachel." Others held signs reading "Innocent until proven guilty." The media circus had returned, bigger than before. Rachel arrived in her wheelchair. Strategic, Tyler knew, even though she could walk. She wore a simple blue dress, minimal makeup. She wanted the jury to see her scars, her struggle, her truth. Derek arrived in a black town car with Marcus Vaughn. He looked confident, polished, like a man who'd never doubted his own victory. Inside, the courtroom was packed. District Attorney Sarah Mitchell sat at the prosecution table, organizing her files. She was in her mid-40s, built her career on domestic violence cases, and she wanted Derek's head. The judge entered, Honor Patricia Morrison, a black woman in her 50s with a reputation for taking no nonsense from expensive lawyers. "All rise," the bailiff called. The trial of Derek Winters had begun. Sarah Mitchell's opening statement was precise and devastating. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a man who weaponized his mistress to assault his pregnant wife, then weaponized the legal system to steal her child. Derek Winters didn't get his hands dirty. He got someone else to do it. That doesn't make him innocent. That makes him a coward." She walked to a screen, pulled up the courthouse security footage everyone had seen online. But this time she zoomed in on something new. Derek's face in the courthouse doorway. The timestamp. The small smile. Freeze frame 9:48:17 a.m. While his pregnant wife is lying unconscious on marble stairs, bleeding, Derek Winters is smiling. Why? Because everything was going exactly according to plan. The jury leaned forward. Marcus Vaughn stood for his opening statement, all silver hair and practiced sympathy. "The prosecution wants you to believe my client is a criminal mastermind. The truth? He's a father trying to protect his premature daughter from an emotionally disturbed ex-wife who has admitted in therapy, on record, that she struggles with mental health. Yes, Ms. Winters was injured. Yes, it was tragic. But correlation is not causation. My client did not order anyone to attack his wife. He's guilty of nothing except trying to protect his child." Rachel's hands clenched in her lap. Tyler reached over, squeezed her shoulder. "First witness," Judge Morrison said. Sarah Mitchell stood. "The prosecution calls Vanessa Drake." Vanessa entered in handcuffs wearing an orange jumpsuit. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Rachel stared straight ahead, refusing to look at her. After Vanessa was sworn in, Sarah Mitchell approached slowly. "Ms. Drake, why did you attack Rachel Winters on February 14th? Vanessa's voice was barely audible. "Because Derek told me to." The courtroom exploded. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. "Explain," Sarah Mitchell prompted. "He sent me texts days before telling me where to be, what to say. He said Rachel was volatile, that if I confronted her, she'd fall apart in front of cameras. He said it would help his custody case." Vanessa's voice broke. "I didn't know he wanted me to hurt her physically, but when I saw her on those stairs, something snapped. Derek had been telling me for months that she ruined his life, that she trapped him. I wanted to hurt her, and I'm so sorry." Marcus Vaughn jumped up. You're testifying in exchange for a reduced sentence, correct? Yes. So you have every reason to lie. Vanessa looked directly at him. I have every reason to tell the truth. I'm going to prison either way, but Derek deserves to go too. The prosecution introduced the recovered text messages. The jury read Derek's instructions. Make sure you're seen. Wear something bright. The cameras will be there. Marcus tried to object, but Judge Morrison overruled. The texts were authentic, recovered by a forensic expert. Next witness, Maria Gonzalez. Maria was nervous, her English heavily accented, but her testimony was devastating. She described overhearing Derek and Marcus discussing how if Vanessa had caused a miscarriage, there would be no custody problems. How Derek said Rachel would probably kill herself within a year. Marcus tried to discredit her, pointing out she'd been undocumented, that Rachel had helped her get a green card. Maria stood straighter. I have green card now. Ms. Rachel helped me. I don't need to lie. The prosecution played the audio recording. Derek's voice filled the courtroom. If Vanessa had caused a miscarriage, you wouldn't have any custody issues at all. Derek's face drained of color. He whispered urgently to Marcus, who looked equally panicked. Judge Morrison called a brief recess. In the hallway, Tyler found Rachel staring at the courthouse steps through a window. You okay? I keep seeing myself fall, she said quietly. Over and over. Do you think it'll ever stop? I don't know, but after today, maybe it'll hurt less. She turned to him. Thank you for believing me when no one else did. Always. When court reconvened, Sarah Mitchell called Tyler to the stand. He testified about the deleted security footage, the paid security chief, the $2 million smear campaign. Marcus cross-examined. You're testifying for your sister. Quite a conflict of interest. Yeah, I'm biased, Tyler said. I watched her almost die. I watched her baby fight for life in an incubator. I watched you two vultures try to erase her, so yes, I'm very biased toward the truth. Several jury members nodded. The trial lasted 3 days. Each day, the evidence mounted. Financial records, witness testimony, the damning audio recording played again and again. On the third day, Marcus made his fatal mistake. Your Honor, I'd like to call Derek Winters to the stand. Sarah Mitchell smiled. Derek took the stand wearing a Navy suit and his best concerned father expression. Marcus Vaughn led him through a practiced narrative. Devoted dad trying to protect his premature daughter, heartbroken over his wife's instability. Then Sarah Mitchell stood for cross-examination. Mr. Winters, why were you smiling on the courthouse steps after your pregnant wife fell? I wasn't. We have the footage. Sarah pulled it up on the screen. Freeze frame 9:48:17 a.m. You smiling. The image showed Derek's face clearly. That small, satisfied smirk before he composed himself. That's not a smile. That's, you were pleased. You got exactly what you wanted. Your wife injured, your baby premature, and you, the concerned father, swooping in for custody. Derek's composure cracked slightly. She was ruining my life. She got pregnant to trap me. So you orchestrated an attack on her? I didn't. He caught himself, but too late. You didn't what, Mr. Winters? Didn't mean for Vanessa to actually hurt her? Or didn't mean to get caught? She deserved it. The words exploded out of him. She was nothing before me. I made her, and she thought she could just... Marcus half stood. Derek, shut up! But Derek was spiraling now, years of control evaporating. You want to know why I smiled? Because I won. I always win, and bitches like Rachel need to learn their place. Mr. Winters, Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Sit down. Derek lunged toward the gallery, toward Rachel. You should have died on those stairs. You and that baby should be dead. Bailiffs tackled him. The courtroom erupted. Cameras caught everything as Derek was dragged, screaming from the room. Rachel sat perfectly still, tears streaming down her face. But she wasn't crying from fear. She was crying from relief. The mask had finally come off. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Rachel waited in a small room with Tyler, not speaking, just holding hands. When the bailiff came to get them, her hand was shaking so badly she could barely stand. Back in the courtroom, Derek sat with his hands cuffed, Marcus Vaughn beside him looking defeated. The jury filed in, faces serious. In the case of the People versus Derek Winters, the foreman began, on the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, we find the defendant guilty. Rachel exhaled, tears streaming. On the charge of child endangerment, guilty. On the charge of custodial interference through fraud, guilty. On the charge of witness tampering, guilty. Every charge. Guilty on every charge. Marcus Vaughan's separate trial took 2 days. He was found guilty of obstruction of justice, fraud, and bribery. Sentencing came 1 week later. Judge Morrison looked at Derek with something close to contempt. You had everything, wealth, family, opportunity, and you used all of it to destroy the woman who loved you and endanger your own child. You are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for 15 years. Derek's face went white. Marcus Vaughn, as an officer of the court, you betrayed every oath you took. You are disbarred and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Vanessa Drake, while you were manipulated, you still made a choice to commit violence. You are sentenced to 4 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 2. Then Judge Morrison turned to Rachel. Mistress Winters, would you like to address the court? Rachel stood. For the first time in months, she walked to the podium without her wheelchair, without her cane, just a slight limp that would probably never fully go away. The courtroom gasped. Derek's eyes went wide with shock and rage. You thought I'd stay broken, Rachel said, her voice steady. You thought I'd disappear. For months, I let you believe then. I let you think you'd won. But here's what you didn't understand, Derek. You can't destroy someone who refuses to stay down. You took my body, you took my babe, you took my daughter. But you couldn't take my will, and now the whole world knows what you are. I hope those 25 years give you time to think about the woman you tried to erase, because I'm still here, and I'm never going to be silent again. She walked back to her seat, steady and strong. Derek whispered something, probably obscene, but the bailiffs were already leading him away. Rachel watched him go. Then she turned to Tyler and said the first words of the rest of her life, "Take me to see my daughter." The NICU looked different now. The machines were still there, the hushed voices, the soft beeping. But Rachel's daughter, 4 months old, 3.5 pounds, was out of the incubator. She lay in a regular bassinet, tubes reduced to just an oxygen line. Rachel picked her up for the first time in weeks. The baby was warm and solid and real. I still haven't named her, Rachel said to Tyler. Derek refused to fill out the birth certificate. Some custody power play. So name her now. Rachel looked down at her daughter's face. Wide eyes, button nose, a tiny hand wrapped around Rachel's finger. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope. 6 months after the trial, Rachel's new life had taken shape in ways she never expected. She lived in a small art studio apartment in Silver Lake. The walls were covered in student artwork, not from high school kids, but from domestic violence survivors she taught online. Art therapy, twice a week, free of charge. The school district had fired her, but she'd found something better, something that felt like purpose instead of just a paycheck. Tyler visited most evenings. He was working on a documentary about the case, interviewing other mothers who'd been through weaponized custody battles. Netflix wants it, he told Rachel one night. They're calling it The Woman Who Refused to Fall. Dramatic, Rachel said, but she was smiling. Hope sat in her playpen, now 18 months old, healthy and giggling. She'd caught up developmentally, physical therapy for her too, but she'd beaten the odds. Have you thought about what's next? Tyler asked. Rachel looked up from the watercolor she was working on. Actually, yes, I want to start a foundation for mothers fighting custody battles against abusive ex-partners. Free legal help, strategy sessions, therapy. The Winters Foundation? Something like that. She paused. The GoFundMe raised $400,000. Most of it went to medical bills, but there's enough left to get started. And I've been talking to lawyers, therapists, other survivors. There's a real need for this, Tyler. A huge need. Tyler studied his sister. She looked different now. Older, yes. Scarred, definitely. But stronger. Whole in a way she hadn't been even before Derek. Mom would be proud of you, he said. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, I think she would. 8 months after the trial, Rachel stood in a conference room with 3 lawyers, 2 therapists, and 5 mothers who'd been through custody nightmares. The Winters Foundation for Maternal Justice, she said, pointing to the logo on the screen. A yellow flower, her mother's favorite, with roots that look like stairs. We'll provide free legal counsel, therapy, and advocacy for mothers fighting weaponized custody litigation. One of the lawyers, Janet Morris, the overworked public defender who tried to help Rachel during her custody hearing, raised her hand. How do we fund this? We already have seed funding from my GoFundMe. We're applying for grants, and we're lobbying for legislative change. Legislative change? Janet looked skeptical. The Winters Act. Rachel pulled up a draft bill. Mandatory audio-video recording of all custody proceedings. Psychological evaluation for both parents, not just mothers. Penalties for lawyers who knowingly file fraudulent custody claims. This is ambitious. It's necessary. Rachel looked around the room. Derek used the legal system as a weapon. He's not the only one. There are thousands of cases like mine every year. Women who lose custody because they're poor, or disabled, or don't have the right lawyer. We're going to change that. One of the mothers spoke up, a woman named Patricia whose ex-husband had almost succeeded in taking her kids by claiming she was an alcoholic. She wasn't. How do we even get something like this passed? We make noise, we organize, we get survivors to tell their stories to legislators. And we don't stop until the law changes. 1 year after the trial, the Winters Act passed in California. Rachel stood at a press conference outside the state capitol, Hope on her hip, Tyler beside her. Today, California becomes the first state to require recorded proceedings in contested custody cases, Governor Martinez said. This legislation will protect vulnerable parents, primarily mothers, from fraudulent claims and weaponized litigation. It's named after Rachel Winters, who survived an attack orchestrated by her ex-husband and fought back by changing the system itself. Reporters shouted questions. Rachel answered them calmly, professionally. She'd gotten good at this, public speaking, advocacy, and being the face of something bigger than herself. That night, she sat in her apartment, reading comments on social media. Most were supportive, some weren't. One comment said, "She's just a victim playing the sympathy card." Another, "Real mothers don't need laws to protect them." Tyler saw her expression. "Don't read that stuff. I have to. If I'm going to help other women, I need to know what they're up against. The disbelief, the blame, the way society tells us we should have seen it coming, should have left sooner, should have fought harder." You did fight hard. You won. Rachel looked at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her crib. I won my case. But there are women right now in courtrooms losing theirs. Women who don't have viral videos, or brothers who are journalists, or enough money for good lawyers. Those women need to win too. They will, because of you. Rachel smiled, because of all of us. 18 months after the trial, Rachel received a letter. It was from Derek, prison mail forwarded through her lawyer. She almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won. The letter was short. Rachel, I'm not writing to apologize. I don't think you'd believe me if I did. But I've had a lot of time to think, and I understand now that what I did was wrong. Not just legally wrong, morally wrong. I tried to erase you. I tried to take everything that made you who you are. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that Hope is better off with you. She always was. You're a better person than I ever gave you credit for. Maybe you always were, and I was too blind to see it. I hope you're happy. I hope she's healthy. I hope you never think about me again, Derek. Rachel read it twice, then she folded it, put it in a drawer, and never looked at it again. She didn't need Derek's acknowledgement. She didn't need his apology. She had survived. She had her daughter. She had her purpose. That was enough. 2 years after the courthouse attack, Rachel stood at the bottom of those same marble steps. It was a bright spring morning, and the plaza was filled with people. Women holding yellow flowers. Reporters with cameras. Legislators in suits. Everyone had gathered for the dedication ceremony. A new plaque was being installed on the courthouse steps, right where Rachel had fallen. in memory of all survivors of domestic violence who fought for justice against impossible odds. May these steps represent not where you fell, but where you began to rise. Rachel read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. You okay? Tyler asked, standing beside her with his documentary camera. Yeah, I'm okay. Hope, now 2 years old, toddled between them. She wore a yellow dress. Rachel had made it herself, painting watercolor flowers on the fabric. The ceremony began. Governor Martinez spoke about the Winters Act, which had now been adopted by 12 states. Janet Morris spoke about the 300 custody cases the Winters Foundation had helped win in the past year. Then Rachel stepped up to the podium. She looked out at the crowd and saw so many faces she recognized. Vanessa Drake was there, recently released from prison, working as a crisis counselor now. Maria Gonzalez with her grandson, visiting from Mexico. Dozens of mothers the foundation had helped, holding their children. 2 years ago, I stood on these steps as a victim, Rachel began. Someone who'd been broken by the man who was supposed to love me. Someone who'd been attacked, hospitalized, and told she wasn't fit to be a mother. Today, I stand here as a survivor, but more than that, as someone who refused to let trauma define her story. When I was lying in that hospital bed, unable to walk, unable to hold my newborn daughter, I had a choice. I could accept the narrative Derek and his lawyers were creating about me, or I could fight back. I chose to fight, not just for myself, but for every woman who's been told she's too emotional, too unstable, too damaged to deserve justice. The Winters Foundation has helped over 400 mothers retain custody of their children in the past year. We've trained 50 pro bono lawyers. We've lobbied for legislative change in 20 states, and we're just getting started. The crowd applauded. Hope clapped her tiny hands too, not understanding but feeling the energy. But I want to be clear about something, Rachel continued. Victory doesn't erase trauma. I still have nightmares about falling down these stairs. I still walk with a limp that will never fully heal. I still have moments where I doubt myself, where I hear Derek's voice telling me I'm nothing. Survival isn't about being perfect or whole or unbroken. It's about refusing to let the people who hurt you write your ending. She paused, looking down at Hope. My daughter will grow up knowing her father is in prison. That's a pain I can't prevent. But she'll also grow up knowing that when someone tried to destroy her mother fought back and won. That's the story I want her to tell someday. Not the story of the fall, but the story of the rise. The plaza erupted in applause. Women stood holding their yellow flowers high. Cameras flashed. Tyler's documentary crew captured every moment. Rachel stepped away from the podium and walked to the exact spot where she'd fallen. Hope held her hand, looking up at her mother with witty, trusting eyes. Mama, why everyone crying? Because sometimes, baby, people cry when they're happy. Hope considered this, then picked up one of the yellow flowers that had fallen from someone's bouquet. She handed it to Rachel. For you, Mama. Rachel took the flower, pressed it to her chest, and looked up at the courthouse that had witnessed her trauma and her triumph. Thank you, she whispered, to her daughter, to Tyler, to everyone who'd believed her when it mattered most. Then she turned and walked down the marble steps, steady and strong, her daughter's hand in hers. Behind them, the plaque gleamed in the morning sun, a promise to all the women who would come after her. Your fall is not your ending. Your rise is just beginning. 3 years after the trial, Rachel received a phone call that changed everything again. Mr. Winters, this is Senator Patricia Williams from the California State Legislature. I'm calling because we'd like your input on federal legislation. Rachel was in her office at the Winters Foundation. They'd moved from her apartment to a proper space in downtown Los Angeles. The walls were covered with thank you notes from mothers they'd helped. Photos of children returned to their rightful parents. Newspaper clippings about the Winters Act's expansion to 17 states. Federal legislation, Rachel asked. The Family Court Accountability Act. It would nationalize many provisions of the Winters Act. Mandatory recording of proceedings, psychological evaluations for both parents, penalties for fraudulent custody claims. We want you to testify before Congress. Rachel sat down hard in her chair. Senator, I'm not a lawyer or a legislator. You're the reason we're having this conversation. Your case exposed how easily the family court system can be weaponized against vulnerable parents. Your foundation has already changed hundreds of lives. Now we have a chance to change thousands more. Rachel looked at the photo on her desk. Hope at her third birthday party, covered in frosting, laughing. When would you need me? Next month. We're assembling a panel of survivors, legal experts, and child welfare advocates. You'd be our opening witness. After the call ended, Rachel sat in silence for a long time. Then she called Tyler. I need your help, she said. I have to testify before Congress, and I need to get the story right. All of it. The parts people don't want to hear. What parts? The part where I almost gave up. The part where I wanted to the part where I made deals with people who hurt me because I had no other choice. Congress needs to understand that survival isn't clean or pretty. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it means compromising in ways that make you hate yourself. Tyler was quiet for a moment. You're going to change the entire system, aren't you? I'm going to try. The congressional testimony took place in a packed hearing room in Washington, D.C. Rachel wore the same blue dress she'd worn at Derek's trial. Hope stayed home with Tyler. This was one story her daughter wasn't old enough to hear yet. Rachel sat at the witness table, flanked by Janet Morris and two other family law attorneys. Across from them sat members of the House Judiciary Committee, some sympathetic, some skeptical. Ms. Winters, the committee chair began, thank you for being here. Please tell us, in your own words, what happened when you sought custody of your daughter after being attacked while pregnant. Rachel took a breath and began. She told them about the courthouse steps, about waking up in the hospital to find her baby in the NICU and her husband filing for custody, about losing that custody despite being the victim of a violent assault. She told them about the smear campaign, the weaponization of her therapy records, the judge who believed a wealthy man over an injured woman. She told them about the impossible choices, accepting Vanessa's plea deal, befriending Derek's housekeeper, pretending to be more broken than she was just to catch him in a lie. The family court system, Rachel said, looking directly at the cameras, is supposed to protect children, but too often it protects the parents with the most money and the best lawyers. It protects men who can afford to destroy their ex-wives' reputations. It protects abusers who know how to manipulate the system. One committee member, a man in his 60s with a skeptical expression, interrupted. Ms. Winters, aren't you generalizing? Surely most family court judges are fair and impartial. Are they? Rachel pulled out a folder. The Winters Foundation has documented over 1,800 cases in the past 3 years where custody was awarded to the parent with more financial resources, regardless of abuse allegations. 1,800 mothers who lost their children not because they were unfit, but because they were poor. She spread photos across the table. This is Maria Torres. Her ex-husband broke her jaw. She lost custody because she couldn't afford a lawyer and represented herself. This is Jennifer Price. Her ex-husband threatened to kill her. She lost custody because the judge said she was being dramatic. This is Patricia Walsh. Her ex-husband hired Marcus Vaughn, yes, the same lawyer who helped orchestrate my attack. She lost custody because Vaughn convinced the judge she had Munchausen by proxy. She didn't. Medical experts confirmed that, but the judge believed the expensive lawyer over the medical evidence. The committee room was silent. The system is broken, Rachel said quietly, and it won't be fixed by individual victories like mine. It needs structural change, federal standards, oversight, accountability. The Family Court Accountability Act would provide all of that. It would save lives. It would reunite children with their non-abusive parents. It would stop men like Derek Winters from using wealth as a weapon. The skeptical committee member leaned forward. Ms. Winters, your case was extraordinary, but can we really change the entire family court system based on extraordinary cases? Rachel met his eyes. My case wasn't extraordinary, sir. It was just visible. There are thousands of women going through the same thing right now, this very moment. They just don't have viral videos or documentary crews following them. But their trauma is just as real. Their losses are just as devastating, and they deserve the same justice I got. After 3 hours of testimony, Rachel was exhausted but hopeful. The committee seemed genuinely moved. Even the skeptical member had softened by the end. As she gathered her papers, Janet Morris whispered, "You just changed the game." "We'll see," Rachel said, but she allowed herself a small smile. 6 months later, the Family Court Accountability Act passed with bipartisan support. President Morrison signed it into law at a ceremony in the White House Rose Garden. Rachel stood beside her, Hope in her arms, Tyler filming everything. "This legislation," President Morrison said, "will protect millions of parents and children from a system that too often favors wealth over welfare." It's named in spirit after Rachel Winters and the countless survivors who fought to be heard. Today, we're finally listening. After the ceremony, reporters surrounded Rachel. "How does it feel to change federal law?" one asked. Rachel looked down at Hope, who was trying to eat a White House cookie. "It feels like the beginning, not the ending. We've changed the law, but we still need to change hearts and minds. We need judges who understand trauma, lawyers who prioritize children over billable hours, a society that believes survivors instead of questioning them." Do you ever think about Derek Winters? Sometimes, but less and less. He took 2 years of my life. I'm not giving him any more time than that. What's next for the Winters Foundation? We're opening offices in 10 more cities, training more lawyers, expanding our art therapy program, and we're creating a scholarship fund for children of domestic violence survivors, kids like Hope who've been affected by their parents' trauma. What would you say to women currently in abusive relationships? Rachel looked directly at the camera. "I'd say you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Build a support network. And when you're ready to leave, we'll be here to help you. And one more thing, survival is possible. Justice is possible. Happiness is possible. I'm living proof." That night, back in their hotel room, Tyler showed Rachel the rough cut of his documentary. They sat on the couch, Hope asleep between them, watching Rachel's story unfold on screen. The courthouse footage, the hospital, the trial, the foundation, the congressional testimony, and finally the White House signing ceremony. When it ended, Tyler asked, "What do you think?" Rachel was crying. "I think Mom would be proud." Yeah, she would. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Hope sleep. "Do you ever regret it?" Tyler asked. "Fighting back, all the publicity, the testimony, the foundation work. You could have just taken your daughter and disappeared, built a quiet life somewhere." Rachel thought about it. "Sometimes I'm exhausted. Sometimes I wish I could just be Hope's mom, not Rachel Winters, the survivor. But then I get letters from women we've helped, mothers who got their kids back because of our legal team, kids who grew up with their moms instead of in foster care. And I realize this is what I was supposed to do with my trauma. Turn it into something meaningful. Turn it into something that helps people. Derek tried to erase me. Instead, he made me visible, and I'm using that visibility for good." Tyler smiled. "That's the most Rachel thing I've ever heard." "What does that mean?" "It means you still see the best in everything, even trauma, even pain. You somehow turned the worst experience of your life into a way to help others." Rachel looked down at Hope. "That's what survivors do. We take our broken pieces and build something new, something stronger, something that matters." 5 years after the courthouse attack, Rachel stood at the bottom of those marble steps again. It was the annual Survivors Walk, an event the Winters Foundation hosted every February 14th. Hundreds of women gathered at the courthouse, many holding children's hands, all wearing yellow. This year was special. Today, Hope would climb the courthouse steps for the first time. She was 5 years old now, bright and curious, with Rachel's blonde hair and a smile that could light up rooms. She knew her father was in prison. Rachel had explained it in age-appropriate terms, but she also knew she was loved, safe, and surrounded by people who would never let anyone hurt her. "Are you ready, baby?" Rachel asked, kneeling in front of her daughter. "Do I have to, Mama?" "No, you never have to do anything that scares you, but sometimes facing scary things makes us braver." Hope looked up at the courthouse steps. "Is this where you fell?" "Yes." "Did it hurt?" "Very much, but you know what hurt more? Being told I couldn't be your mama. That was the scariest, most painful part." Hope thought about this. Then she held out her hand. "I'll go with you." Rachel took her daughter's hand. Tyler stood beside them with his camera. The documentary had won awards, led to a sequel, and now he was filming the Foundation's 5-year retrospective. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," Rachel said. They began to climb. Step 1, step 2. Hope counted each one in her high, clear voice. 3, 4, 5. Rachel felt her chest tighten. Even after 5 years, these steps triggered memories. The fall, the pain, the blood, Derek's smile. But Hope's hand in hers kept her grounded. This wasn't 5 years ago. This was now, and now Rachel was strong. 8, 9, 10. Halfway up, Hope dropped her stuffed rabbit. It tumbled down the stairs. Rachel froze. For a split second, she saw herself falling, heard the crowd screaming, felt the impact of marble against bone. "Mama!" Hope tugged her hand. "My bunny fell." Rachel took a shaky breath. "It's okay. Let's get it." They walked down together, Rachel conquering her fear with every step. She picked up the rabbit, dusted it off, and handed it to Hope. "There you go, baby. Sometimes things fall, but we can always pick them up again." Hope hugged the rabbit. "Like when you fell?" "Exactly like when I fell. I was scared, I hurt, but I got back up, and now I'm here with you." "Will I fall sometimes?" Rachel knelt again, looking into her daughter's eyes. "Probably. Everyone falls sometimes. But you know what makes you strong? Getting back up, over and over, as many times as it takes." "Will you help me get up?" "Always. And when you're big enough, you'll help other people get up too. That's what our family does." They climbed the remaining steps together. At the top of Yeshenekinam, hundreds of women were waiting, survivors, advocates, lawyers, legislators. They burst into applause when Rachel and Hope reached the summit. Governor Martinez was there. So was Senator Williams. So was Janet Morris, now a judge herself, appointed specifically to family court to bring compassionate oversight to custody cases. And there, off to the side, was Vanessa Drake. Rachel hadn't seen her since the trial. Vanessa had been released from prison 2 years ago, served her parole, and quietly rebuilt her life as a crisis counselor. They'd never spoken, never acknowledged each other. But today, Vanessa stepped forward. "Can I talk to you just for a minute?" Rachel looked at Tyler, who nodded. She turned to Hope. "Go with Uncle Tyler for a minute, okay?" When they were alone, Vanessa said, "I know I have no right to be here. I know what I did can never be forgiven. But I wanted you to know I've spent every day of the past 5 years of trying to make up for it. I work with women leaving abusive relationships. I've helped 37 women escape in the past 2 years. It doesn't fix what I did to you, but maybe it means something." Rachel studied her. Vanessa looked different, older, humbler, scarred in ways that didn't show on her skin. "It means something," Rachel said finally. "Not forgiveness. I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be, but it means you're trying to be better. That matters. Thank you for the plea deal, for giving me a chance at a lighter sentence. I didn't do it for you. I did it to destroy Derek." "I know, but it saved my life anyway. I would have spent 15 years in prison. Instead, I spent 4. It gave me time to become someone better." Rachel nodded slowly. "Good. Use that time well." Vanessa turned to leave, then paused. "Your daughter is beautiful. You're a good mother. Derek was wrong about everything, but especially about that." After she left, Rachel stood at the top of the courthouse steps, looking down at the marble where she'd fallen 5 years ago. The plaque gleamed in the morning sun. Tyler returned with Hope. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." The ceremony began. Governor Martinez spoke about the Winters Act, now law in 42 states. Senator Williams announced that the Family Court Accountability Act had reunited over 15,000 children with their non-abusive parents. Then Rachel stepped up to speak. She looked out at their crowd, survivors, advocates, legislators, reporters, and hundreds of women wearing yellow, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just survival, not just strength, hope. "5 years ago," Rachel began, "I stood at the bottom of these steps as a victim, someone broken, bleeding, and told she wasn't fit to be a mother. Today, I stand at the top as a survivor who refused to let trauma write her ending. But I'm not here to tell you survival is easy. It's not. I still have nightmares. I still walk with a limp. I still have days where I doubt everything about myself. Healing isn't linear. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes you take 3 steps forward and 5 steps back. Sometimes you fall again. Sometimes people you trusted hurt you again. Sometimes the system fails you again. But here's what I've learned. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of justice. You don't have to be unbroken to be strong. You don't have to forget your trauma to build a beautiful life. You just have to refuse to stay down. The crowd erupted in applause. Hope clapped her hands, not fully understanding but proud of her mama anyway. The Winters Foundation has helped over 2,000 mothers in the past 5 years. Rachel continued, we've trained 200 pro bono lawyers. We've changed laws in 42 states and counting. We've created art therapy programs, scholarship funds, and support networks. But our work isn't done. Every day, women lose custody to abusive ex-partners. Every day, children are separated from their non-abusive parents. Every day, the system favors wealth over welfare. So we keep fighting. We keep changing laws. We keep believing survivors. And we keep reminding anyone who'll listen. Your fall is not your ending. Your rise is just beginning. She stepped back from the podium and took Hope's hand. Together they walked down the courthouse steps, slowly, carefully, but without fear. At the bottom, women placed yellow flowers on the spot where Rachel had fallen. Hundreds of flowers, creating a bright memorial, not to death, but to resurrection. A reporter approached. Ms. Winters, one last question. If you could go back to that day 5 years ago, knowing everything you know now, what would you tell yourself? Rachel thought about it, looking down at Hope. I'd tell myself, this isn't how your story ends. This is just the chapter where you learn how strong you really are. Hold on. Fight back. Survive. Because 5 years from now, you'll be standing here with your daughter, and you'll realize you won. Not just the trial, not just custody, but your life. You won your life back. And that's worth everything. Tyler captured it all, his sister and his niece, walking away from the courthouse hand in hand, surrounded by survivors who'd found hope in Rachel's story. The documentary would end with this scene. The final image, Rachel and Hope disappearing into the crowd, just another mother and daughter among thousands, no longer defined by trauma, but by the life they'd built after it. And in that final frame, you could just barely see Rachel's face as she looked down at her daughter and smiled. Not the broken smile of a victim, the fierce, proud smile of someone who'd refused to stay down, the smile of a woman who'd risen,